I think everyone's known about Sudan underneath for a long time, but now it's come back to the news again. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Why it's back in the news again and what's happening now with it?
Yeah. So basically, I'm only going to touch and then we'll go back. Like, we had this revolution, and what happened was, like I said, the people stayed. They stayed until June 3rd, when there was what we call the June 3rd massacre, which is where like the RSF and the SAF and the police and the security forces, like I said, we've got loads of different forces, basically joined together and attacked the sit-in and like killed and raped everyone.
Holy shit.
So because well, one of the reasons I think why was because we this will explain the war, I promise. Basically, like I said, like they didn't just have this sit-in with ideas going, oh, we're just going to stay and this is going to happen. Like things were planned. And so what happened was the Sudanese Professionals Association, which were kind of like the organizational body, put out a call for civil disobedience, mass civil disobedience, because they were like, cool, they're not listening to us. So we're going to show them that the power of the people is stronger than them. So no one's going to work. We are going to shut down the country. So they shut down the country.
Holy shit.
No one went to work. Like I remember conversation, because I was there. I was only supposed to come for a week. I had a show. And then it was like civil disobedience on the day I'm supposed to fly.
No
flights. It was like, well, the airport was closed.
It's like, oh man, can we do it tomorrow again?
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, but then it was also kind of like, oh,
that's amazing.
Now that I'm here,
yeah,
I want to stay for
I want to see what happens now.
Yeah. And so they did that. And I think that was kind of like, oh, like they really
serious
business. Yeah. And like, you know, people were worried. People were being told like, if you don't come to work, you're going to get fired. And like, I remember conversations with my family, like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to get into trouble. And it was like, but if no one goes to work, they can't fire everyone. And it's that type of mentality. And like, that's how strong the unity was, that like they managed to like shut down. And I think maybe it happened again. I can't remember, but I think that was one of the reasons why they kind of did this massacre. It was also the day before Eid, so it's like the end of Ramadan, which is really ironic because people like to say that they're doing things in the name of God, but you're going to kill everyone on the last day of the holy month. It's not very godly. But so there was that, and then there was, to skim over things, there was after that, like there was an internet blackout. There was this whole thing on social media, like Blue for Sudan, lots of people posting their blue. It kind of it brought Sudan like into like the world's attention because basically Rihanna like tweeted a blue picture. Thank you. It brought things into people's perspective, which meant like the international community had to like be like, oh, what's happening in Sudan is really, really bad. They're having a revolution. We should support the civilian government. Instead of supporting the civilian government, they told the civilian government, like, you can have a civilian government if you have a 3-year transition with the military. It's like, these are the people that have been murdering us for years, but especially now, like this whole massacre. So yeah, we'll go back to this. I'm going to be quick so we can get to where we are, and then we can come back.
Take your time. It's fine. You can. It's important that you explain these for people because they don't have the perspective that you do. So there's no rush. If you do want to take us on a while, we were completely there with you.
Okay.
That's important too.
Okay. So yeah, there was this massacre, which like disrupted the sit-in, and then they basically like. A lot of what we're talking about is like what's happened in the capital. So I think that's like really important to remember because Sudan is a huge country. Like it was the biggest country in Africa until 2011, and now it's the 3rd biggest country in Africa. So even though we lost nearly half of the country, like that's how big a country is. That I'm talking like about the capital in this moment. Yeah, so they had this massacre, and there were other sit-ins around the country that also got dispersed. But because I was in the capital and most of the news is centralized there, like that's what I know the most about. Yeah, they basically did that and like kind of like besieged the whole city. Because I remember like we were there in the daytime and we were like, oh, we're going to go break fast. And everyone there's like, no, break fast with us. And they were like, I'll come back. Like, I promise I'm coming back. I'm just going to go home and eat.
Yeah.
And then it rained. And because it's a sit-in area, like there's like live wires everywhere. I've like taken wires from like lampposts, put on projectors, and you know. So my dad was like, "Don't go right now. Like it's flooded. We're trying to drain the water out." So luckily, it meant a lot of people weren't there that night. Like not as many people as could have been there. And then phones stopped working. Like I remember trying to call my cousin to get a lift, and like I couldn't like
reach him.
Yeah, I couldn't reach him. And then like he came by later, and we're like, we tried to call you. It's like, what are you talking about? And then like at like 5 a.m. I remember being on like the roof as the sun was coming up and like hearing like shot. This is one thing that's interesting is like you acclimatize really quickly. So like I said, like the first day walking through like the guns being like, oh my God, to like hearing a gunshot and like my cousins being like, that's a gunshot, and the other cousin being like, no, that's
it's like a noise, a different noise.
Tear gas.
Okay.
That's tear gas. Like
different types of weapons.
Sounds,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, you could hear that, and then basically, not only did they do that in the sit-in, they then started coming through like all the neighborhoods, like going around, like shooting to like make sure everyone stayed inside, so people didn't resist against them. Because I remember people coming out on the street and being like, "We're going to the sit-in, like we're going to march," and it was like, then there's suddenly snipers on the roof, and you're like, "What
the fuck is happening?" Yeah.
So I remember my cousin being like, "We're going to go to my aunt's across the road," and suddenly like calling her, and she's like, I had to go in the neighbor's house because suddenly they were shooting, and it was like shooting in the neighborhood, like as
civilians, just like
like get inside, the revolution's over. Do you know what I mean? Why am I telling you this?
This is insane. No, you're telling because I asked first off, but no, this is insane because you're thinking these are like people, like I know it's obvious, but they are doing this in the name of a job, or they're doing this in the name of something else, but they're also people of Sudan. You know, like they've grown up there, they've went to school there, and now they're turning up against their own people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the tragedy in that. It's like you don't see yourself as part of the people you're trying to like shoot from a sniper. Where is the love of your own people? That's so obvious in culture. You know what I mean? It's a tragedy to see that turned for them, and I in their heads I'm doing this because I've been told and I've got no, but you do have an option.
Yeah, exactly.
The people
you have an option.
The people there trying to fight against that government, don't you think they had that same realization?
And that's what they're saying to them. They're like, join us, like please, like be with us. And that was one of the sad things that like the RSF, because they'd mostly been in Darfur as the Janjaweed, now the RSF, or they'd been hired out like by Saudi Arabia to like fight in Yemen and stuff. And also like the news is controlled. Like that's where I think the difference is between like diaspora and people in Sudan. Some things where I'm like, I can have my strong feelings, but I don't live in Sudan. Like, so like your feelings have to come first. But then there's also the thing of like, I've had news from outside of Sudan about what's happening in Sudan. Like, do you remember like, you know, when stuff started happening in Darfur, like years and years ago, like it kind of blew up like in the news. Whereas in Sudan, like I spoke to people and they were like, oh, we were just told that the people in the West were like bad people. And so like they were defending us against them. And it's like, oh no, that's not what, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So when the RSF came in, they came in under the guise of like, we're here to protect you, the civilians, and we're here to help you like overthrow Bashir, the dictator. So there's like videos of them like celebrating with the RSF and like putting them up on their shoulders. Like we finally have like people supporting us, like people on like the army supporting us. Until they turned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the really sad thing. And especially like even now, like there's a lot of people that support like the Sudanese armed forces because they're like, well, we need an army. These are our people, the RSF, we don't know them. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure there are people in there that are good people and there's factions in there that are supporting you. But where are the people that are actually protecting you? Because right now, no one is protecting the civilians. And that's like...
That's the tragedy that's happening. Yeah, yeah. So up until today, as in like as we sit here today, I know recently something happened, and recently there was like you said, it's called a civil war, but it's not a war by civilians, it's a war on civilians by these two factions. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So basically, after there was this like transition where the civilians had to join with the army, the civilian government and the transitional military council had to join together for 3 years in order for the West to recognize like and support like this transition away from like the old regime.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the head of the Transitional Military Council was Burhan, who was the head of the Sudanese armed forces.
Could you talk to me about what's happening now and like, just explain what the term civil war, how that's kind of obviously misled and misguided and what's actually the reality of it?
So basically, like I said earlier, there was this, in order for us to have like the transition to civilian rule, we were basically told by like the Western powers that we had to have this civilian government and the Transitional Military Council for 3 years. And then there'd be like the peaceful handover of power to the civilian government, which history will always tell you is never going to happen, especially in a country that's had that many coup attempts.
Yes.
But so we had our civilian government, we had our Prime Minister Hamdok, and then we had the Transitional Military Council. And the head of the Transitional Military Council was Burhan, who is the head of the Sudanese Armed Forces. And the vice president of that was Hemeti, the head of the RSF. So they'd joined together to kill the civilians June 3rd. They'd then joined together to be part of this Transitional Military Council. And they kind of, got legitimized. They like got invited to like, what's it called? The like king's, when the king comes in power.
Oh, and coronation?
That's it. I'm like, what's it?
The thing with the whip, when it starts chef.
Yeah. They got invited to all these like global things. It was
They start become officials. Yeah.
And basically this is like summer of like 2019. In October 2021, there was a coup that like they took the civilian prime minister and like the two heads, the president and vice president of the military council joined together for this coup. And then stuff happens, and then do you know what I mean? And then we get to April 2023, and what's happened is that like you've got the head of the army as like the president, and you've got the head of the RSF as the vice president. Neither one of them wants to be second to the other one, especially when both of them are like commanders in their own right. So what happens is like tension rises, and then there's speculation as to who made the first move. We also have, to complicate things slightly, like the old regime, who we call the Kazan. Like, I can't remember the reasoning why, especially like in English. But they have basically like propped up. They are basically the old regime. They are like the Muslim Brothers in Sudan, like the Islamists, and they kind of are the ones that are like refusing to let go of power. Also, both of these other parties, but they're a big influence within the army. And they also have like their own people within the army. So yes, basically, we're in April 2023. We don't know who made the first move. There's rumors about which one. I'm not going to say because I might be wrong. And basically, people in Khartoum, the capital, wake up one morning and there's bombs dropping from the sky.
On the civilians?
Yeah, there's just bombs dropping from the sky. So imagine you're in London.
Yeah.
And you hear that, I mean, this is dramatic, that like Keir Starmer and Jeremy Corbyn
are
beefing, and they're trying to decide, like, they want to be like the biggest boy in the locker room.
Yeah. And then it started dropping bombs.
Like bombs are dropping from the sky. And I would say it like that because people act like this is normal.
Yeah.
And that like we're in Africa, so of course that's what happens. I'm not saying that hasn't happened in parts of Sudan, like especially in Darfur and the Nuba Mountains. That's why what's happened recently is like so important because of how these people have been treated historically and continue to be treated. But if we're looking at like the capital, that's insane. Like literally, like I remember talking to my dad and him saying like, oh, I think like there's tensions, there's like rumors that there's going to be a standoff between like the RSF and the army. And then literally the next day, it's literally bombs are dropping from the sky because the army have help from Egypt and their aviation. And so they're dropping bombs to like get the RSF out. And the RSF, because they know how to work on the ground, because like the RSF have been like, that's the difference. Like the army have been trained to like kill their own people and stuff like that, but the RSF have like been to war and have been committing these genocides. Like they have dirty tactics. They're on the ground invading people's homes, taking people's homes, like doing whatever they want to do. And the civilians, this is just what's happening. Like
the core in between these two powers just going at each other. And using the civilians basically as like bludgeoning forces. And that's basic, and that's why it's not a civil war, because the civilians haven't like picked up arms and started this war, asked for this war. This is and like this is a war on civilians, and like why I say a war on civilians, and why I felt it was so important to give you like the context of the revolution is because it's seen as, at least by a lot of us, as a counter-revolutionary war, as like a punishment to the civilians for like daring to ask for more. So whilst yes, they are fighting each other, the attacks that there are on civilians on both sides are like there's no justification for it other than because of what's happened in the revolution and for them not taking the sides of either one. I can go into that in more detail, but maybe you want. No, I just wanted to say, like, first off, thank you. It's very, very difficult to kind of summarize a revolution, war, and all of that and also give us the from top down kind of perspective of it, like, you know, from the ground and also from where they are. So thank you for that. I think that's very important.
Because I feel like whenever people ask, I can say like, okay, yeah, there's these two sides, the army and the RSF, and they're fighting each other and they want power, but then it's like...
That's very simplistic, yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, oh, well, the army must be good. And it's like, no, the army have always been hurting the civilians too. And do you know what I mean? So I feel like maybe you don't need it in as much detail, but I do feel like the detail also makes you understand like the Sudanese spirit and the Sudanese people.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. I think that's why I wanted to sit down with you today, because I was like, you don't just say that in one sentence. There's a whole back thing you need to go. You need to understand all these players and what their motivations are and why they're doing this and what that means for the people and all of this. Because I think often with these kind of conflicts, we reduce it too much. And when you reduce it too much, especially when it comes to like Africa, there's so much history between these people. In every parts of, you know, it's all separated. And it's like you mentioned, it's all connected. In ways, Egypt is now kind of coming in somewhere, and like, you know, we know about UAE and all these things have their own fingers in the pie, especially with Africa, with the resources that's there. These countries coming in to help, but they've got their own motivations for helping. And so they're going to want to have these powers being stored that they will benefit them. Doesn't really benefit the people. So I think it's very important to kind of have that perspective. Talk to me a little bit more about that now. You mentioned, like, how is it all connected? Like, in the ways that you understand it. I do want to move from the kind of talking about this to talking more about the culture of Sudan and what we're losing by this going on. So, like, before you know, actually go into that, let's pivot a little bit. So I want to talk about the people of Sudan now. And you mentioned the culture and the beautiful culture of, like, giving and all these things. Talk to me about what home is like for you.